All right, I am back here on the Just End the Suffering podcast, getting ready to talk about the MLB playoffs, talk a little bit back on the season as well. Join me today, the editor of Baseball Digest, the great Rick Cerrone is here. Rick, welcome back to the podcast. How are you?
Wow, the great Rick Cerrone. You're putting the pressure on me, Mike.
I think you can handle it. I've known you long enough to know
All
you can
right.
handle it.
Okay. Good to talk to you.
It is good to talk to you, and I will say it definitely was fun to watch this baseball season. Definitely, I feel like it was going to be unique historically. Somebody who has a long background with the history of the game, like how you think we'll put this season in context, let's say like 5-10 years from now?
Well, I'm not a believer that there will be an asterisk on this world champion. There may be a mental asterisk in people's minds, but, the team that ultimately wins the world championship, you can imagine and you can bet that their fans are not going to be thinking that this didn't count somehow or it counted less. I remember back in 1981 when they had the players strike in the middle of the season, wiped out roughly, 50 something games of that season, and they went to the division. That they didn't have Division Series then, but they did that year, and then they had the LCS. No one looks at the 81 Dodgers as an illegitimate champion. So I think baseball did exactly what was necessary to get this season in. I commend them for that. The players, all the team personnel behind the scenes, the commissioner's office. But then we can talk about maybe some of these rules changes that were implemented on the fly. And, now we've got to get to the decision of, well, what do we keep and what do we get rid of?
Yeah, it's actually where I wanted to go next was these rule changes. Obviously, we had a lot of them. We had the 7-inning doubleheaders came a necessity with all the games being postponed for coronavirus-related reasons. The extra inning rule, which obviously designed to get teams out of the ballpark faster. What are your thoughts on some of those rules? And are there any you think that are worth keeping, or should we just scrap heap most of these?
Well, I wrote about that in my first pitch for the upcoming issue of Baseball Digest, which doesn't come out until November 1. But I tried to take a look at it, and my basic point was the easy part of the job was implementing these things with impunity because everybody kind of understood what the reasons were for implementing a rule like a runner at second base in the 10th inning. And, these things would have been considered crimes against the game at one point, and now they were accepted with very little, if any, complaint. So I think the tough part now is going forward, and maybe not until everybody says, well, the DH is here to stay, this is here to stay. Well, let's remember that the basic agreement with the players runs out after the 2021 season. So I'm not sure anything's going to happen before that collective bargaining. So we may not see, everybody says, well, the DH is here to stay. Well, not so fast. It has to be collectively bargained, I believe. So it may not reappear in the National League until 2022. But if you want to take them one at a time, hey, I'm a purist. I thought that the runner at second in extra innings was silliness and a gimmick, but you know what? We may have something. I think it adds interest to every half inning of extra innings, no matter how long the game may go. There's action immediately. Oh, we've got a runner at second and no one out. And I don't believe that 18-inning games or 16-inning games serve anybody. We can talk about it. Oh, what a great 16-inning game that was. But for the most part, people are not watching the later innings. You look at the ballparks in extra innings, and you're basically wrecking the team's roster. I mean, players lose their jobs. They get sent down the next day, some to never return. So I don't believe there's a single GM or manager that would say, no, let's keep the shot at an 18 or 20 inning game. So I think that one may have some life.
Yeah, I think that one, I think the thing I like about it is I think it's sort of like what happens in tennis with Wimbledon where they sort of have these matches go on forever and then it sort of taints the result. I think maybe a sweet medium would be okay, maybe you play 3 regular extra innings and in the top of the 12th, you put somebody on
there you go.
base.
And I wrote that if I were to keep it, I would recommend to baseball that they play the 10th and the 11th inning in the traditional manner and add this in the 12th inning. I'll compromise with you, and you can add it in the 11th. But play at least the 10th and perhaps the 11th inning legitimately. Now, the 3-batter minimum rule, is interesting in that it seems to have been implemented seamlessly, but it didn't really accomplish anything because games took 2 minute, 9-inning games on average took 2 minutes longer than the previous year. But I don't think you can really judge the time of game based on this season because I don't know, and I have nothing to back this up, but it seems like half-inning breaks were longer, and they may have been trying to recoup revenue with longer, breaks for advertising, which is fine. So I do think that rule will be here to stay. Now, if I can jump in and say, let's talk about the 7-inning doubleheader. This has got to go because I get it. We understand. It's just not legit. It's not legit on any level. You come back, you got a big 2 runs in the bottom of the 7th, and you won the game. No, you didn't. You took a 3-2 lead, a 5-4 lead after 7 innings. It's not a legitimate game.
Yeah, I can definitely see that argument because especially I know it's something that the independent leagues do and the minor leagues do. Major League Baseball has never done this, and I get the idea,
right.
You saved the bullpens a little bit, but at the same time, the games did go faster, but I do get the argument. You know what? This is such a tradition that baseball is 9 innings, and all you're doing is...
It's not a baseball game, Mike. A baseball game is 9 innings.
Yeah.
It's a 9-inning game. A football game is 4 quarters, 3 periods. Now, let me throw out another thing about this that's very important as well. First of all, we don't really have traditional straight single admission doubleheaders anymore. So you're playing a day-night doubleheader. You're playing a game at 1 o'clock, clearing out the building, putting a new set of fans in there, 2 separate admissions. You cannot foist 7-inning games on split doubleheaders because you're not cutting ticket prices. So there's no reason to do that going forward. And the only reason I even bring this up, because someone in MLB may say, well, what is he barking at? We had no plans to keep this. Well, I'm hearing a lot of people, maybe a few people, but powerful people who people listen to that are saying, I think this is a great idea. I think, this borderlines on a joke if you did it moving forward.
Yeah, it's certainly worth watching going forward. I think the other thing that a lot of purist fans will say as a joke going forward is if this expanded playoff system does go forward beyond this year. And I get why they did it this year at the shorter season, want to give more teams access to the playoffs. Mm-hmm. I do think the wild card round was fun this year. Having 8 games on Wednesday was definitely very interesting. But I don't know about you, I do feel like if we're going forward, I think the extending the playoffs is a mistake because I think they had the right formula. I think doing this for money is just sort of cutting off your nose to spite your face.
I couldn't agree with you more. I do think it was absolutely the right thing to do for this year. But going forward, I think what they did this year, and it doesn't look like it's going to happen, where an 8th seed steps up and bites a 1 seed. So, we lived for many years with the 1 wild card where there was no benefit to a team winning a division because the wild card went right to the division series against the highest seeded team. Well, then you added the 2 wild cards in 2012, and there was a benefit to winning the division because if you were one of the 2 wild cards, you had 1 game, a do or die game, to get into that. So it made sense. Now you are everybody talks about the best teams getting to the World Series. Well, now you're putting an unnecessary obstacle, an additional unnecessary obstacle in the path of the best teams. You're taking the Tampa Bay Rays, who had the best record, and matching them up with the 8th seed. You're taking the Oakland Athletics, maybe, who had the second best record, perhaps in MLB, tied for the second best record with the Twins, and you're matching them up against lower seeds. In this case, in the National League, where you had teams that weren't even at 500, I don't think you can do that. The Reds should not be playing the Atlanta Braves. 8 should not be playing 1. So I fear that based on the excitement of this week, that baseball will like this idea, but you can't go to 16 teams. what I would think they might do from this is make the wild card a best of 3. But look, they're probably going to add another 2 teams, but you can't add 6 teams to the postseason and run the risk of getting a 500 or sub 500 team in the postseason. And again, you're making it more difficult for the best teams to advance to the World Series.
Yeah, I feel like they are dead set on it because the money will bring in, the excitement they do generate. I think the one counter I think they're going to make this feasible is like, if you go to 14 teams per league and not do the stupid, in my opinion, selection show where you have like the teams picking their opponent, I think what you do is you put the 3 division winners automatically go to the division series round. You put the 4 wild cards over a mini tournament where they have to knock each other out over 2 days to get in there.
That's basically what I wrote. Let the wild cards fight it out for their chance to get into a matchup with one of the 3 division series winners. That's exactly what I wrote. But look, I'm a traditionalist, but I understand that the game evolves, things change. I mean, in 1968, the year of the pitcher, after that year, the mound was lowered. In 1973, I mean, that's 47 years ago. The American League added the DH. We went in 69, we went to 2 divisions per league. Then, 20 years later, we went to 3 divisions. We've tweaked. We've always tweaked. But I just think that, we've got to cherish the game and not make quick decisions based on, some recent trend. I mean, Major League Baseball attendance has been down every season since 2013. With a 100% drop in attendance this year, obviously. I think it's going to be quite a while before that attendance gets back to record levels. I understand baseball desperately wants to do the right thing. I just think that this is a very, very sensitive and difficult time for baseball because, you don't want to mess with the foundations of the game, so to speak.
Yeah, it's certainly true. And one thing I think it's different this year, obviously, we had the playoff bubble. They want to make sure they get these games in and try and minimize people's time away from their families. So they cut the off days out of the division series and the LCS. What kind of impact do you think that's going to have? Because that's something I've never seen before.
Well, it's interesting, and obviously, it can be done because there's no travel, there's no fan, but the travel is the big thing. Well, what it's going to do, I mean, in a best of 5 series, I mean, you'd be pitching your game 1 starter on 3 days rest in game 5. It's going to be very difficult. It's going to show what teams have the deeper starting pitching, and I think you're going to see teams go with openers, in certain situations. So I think it's going to be a challenge for these teams. I think the deeper rosters are going to do obviously better than those with, and I think you've seen that in this series. I think you've seen that in this series with starting pitching.
Yeah, I agree with that. And we do have one fantastic series coming in the next round, the Yankees and the Rays, who can't stand each other. There's a first ever postseason matchup between these 2 teams. So what's intriguing you about this series coming up with the Yankees in Tampa?
Well, I picked the Yankees. I think the Yankees should win the World Series. I do think top to bottom, they have the best roster. I think one of the things that works in Tampa Bay's favor, and Tampa Bay is an excellent team. They play good defense. Their pitching is very deep. I think they can match up with the Yankees. Obviously, they won 8 of 10 in the regular season, but let's remove that. The other thing that I said going into this postseason is that the Yankees are going into this postseason without a very big weapon. You know what that is?
I'm actually not aware of what that is.
Well, you know what? They got their players back. They got Judge back. They got Stanton back. You know what? They're healthier than they've been all year, but they ain't got Yankee Stadium. And that's a really big weapon for this team. Now, they overcame that very nicely in the 2 games against the Indians. So I think that only helps Tampa Bay, in my opinion, that they don't have to go to Yankee Stadium for 2 games. So let's say they had, they won the division. I mean, we can't extrapolate this out into 162 games, we don't know if they would have. But, they're not going to Yankee Stadium for any games. All these games are being played in a neutral field that neither team has ever played in. So I think that may negate some of the Yankees' weapons. We'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, Petco Park's going to be tough for them because they're a power-based team. So that's obviously one of the tougher parks they home runs in. So that'll be a challenge for sure. The other American League Series is the A's and the Astros. This is another case where these two teams can't stand each other. I just feel like it's interesting here because the Astros really got the luckiest break in baseball this year, where they didn't have to go and have fans be killing them the entire year for the cheating scandal. They got the Twins who wilted in the postseason pressure, and now they go play Oakland. So, what do you think about that series?
I think Houston has a puncher's chance because before this best 2 of 3 against the White Sox, Oakland has not done well in recent decades in postseason. That team just doesn't. Their game, it doesn't play well in the playoffs. So I think I would make Houston the slight favorite in this. They've got the experience, although Oakland has postseason experience as well. I would make Houston the slight favorite in this series.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't trust the A's come playoff time.
Well, there you go. That's basically how I feel.
Yeah. Go to the National League side for a minute. The Dodgers obviously are through. Recording on Friday, so the 2 of the series are not done yet. The Dodgers are through. The Braves are through. I think the Dodgers are the favorite, but who do you think that's left could really challenge them?
Well, I mean, I think they're clearly the favorite. Okay, and I think the team that would have the best chance to topple them would be the Braves. The other teams that are remaining, and when we're talking here, we don't know which teams have advanced in the remaining games, so it's hard to say. But it's hard to say right now that the Padres would have a puncher's chance because they ain't in yet.
Yeah, I think the Dodgers also, it's a lot of pressure on them, too, because this team was clearing away the best team in baseball in terms of record-wise this year. They dominated the NL West. I know it's a short season, but I feel like there also has got to be more pressure building on them, considering their roster to actually come through and win for the first time since '88.
Oh, there's a lot of pressure on the Dodgers. This is, world championship or bust, and that's the way it always is with the Yankees, although they have not even been in a World Series since 2009. But, the best teams may be there, but we don't know. I mean, Tampa Bay, the little engine that could or whatever. It's going to be really interesting. It's going to be very, very interesting.
Yeah, that's for sure. One last question before I let you go. Obviously, I'm a big Met fan. Big news with them is they missed the playoffs, but they do have a new owner coming in, assuming Steve Cohen is approved by Major League Baseball. You have any thoughts on what this ownership change will mean for the Mets going forward?
Well, it's going to mean a lot. I think Mets fans have to be very excited. Look, I'm not going to denigrate the Wilpons. They were there for many years. They had some success, but probably time for a change. And there's going to be significant changes. But we don't know anything about Steve Cohen as a baseball man. We didn't know anything about George Steinbrenner, who at his press conference in 1973, said, I'm not here to run things. Mike Burke's going to be in charge of the baseball. I'm a shipbuilder. I'm going to go back to shipbuilding. Yeah, how did that work out? So we don't know how much Steve Cohen is going to insert himself. Now, I will tell you that I do believe Steve Cohen will be much more competitive with the Yankees in terms of payroll, maybe not to that degree. But if I was a Met fan, I would be very excited about pending free agents, whether it be Trevor Bauer or whether it be, JT Realmuto. I would be very excited if I was a Met fan.
Yeah, he also won me over immediately by saying he's going to bring back Sandy Alderson, who did a great job building a pennant winner and giving them like a $1 billion rotation that unfortunately did not take advantage of. I think Sandy coming back is also huge for that franchise.
Well, listen, Sandy is a stand-up guy, a solid, exemplary baseball man, former Marine. I mean, I can't say enough good things about Sandy Alderson. So if you have Sandy Alderson at the top of your baseball operations, I think you're in pretty good shape.
All right, there we have it. That was Rick Cerrone from Baseball Digest. Rick, thanks for coming on today. I really appreciate it. Before I let you go, do you want to tell people how they can follow Baseball Digest on social media and some? I know you got the award show coming out when the podcast drops today, where you're revealing the Player Pitcher of the Year awards on MLB Network.
Yes, we're going to be our 52nd Player of the Year awards will have been announced. Pitcher of the Year, Relief Pitcher of the Year from our blue ribbon panel of 17, former players, managers, executives, broadcasters, writers. You can follow Baseball Digest on Twitter at Baseball Digest. You can subscribe by simply going to baseballdigest.com, where we've got a great offer of our print product, the print publication, 6 times a year. Plus, you can also get, with that subscription, digital access to every issue in the history of Baseball Digest.
That's a tremendous value. I'll definitely be looking into that. Rick, thanks for all the time. I really appreciate it.
Okay, Mike, anytime.